Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's class. My name is Salih Ibrahim, and today we'll be looking at risk management in strategic financial management. In our previous class, we started the discussion of the risk management, and specifically we started with foreign currency risk management. We have discussed the basic concept of foreign currency risk management. We have looked at the internal techniques for managing foreign currency risk. So today, I want us to look at the external techniques for managing interest rate, foreign currency risk. Anyway, so after that, in our subsequent class, we'll look at interest rate risk management. We're never able to sufficiently cover this in our physical class, and I've promised to do this video to serve as a complementary material. So without wasting time, let's go through to our topic of discussion. Now, in our previous slide, we talked about several techniques like leading and lagging, investing in your own currency, interest rate, matching, netting, do nothing as the technique for managing foreign currency risk. So let's look at the external technique now. For the external techniques, we will be discussing the following. Foreign currency risk management. So we want to look at the external techniques. External techniques for managing foreign currency risk, for short, FCR for short. Okay, so we are going to be looking at one. We look at forward contract. Forward contract. We look at money market hedge. Money market hedge. We look at currency futures contract. Currency futures contract. We look at currency options, option contract. So these are the four techniques we're going to be looking at. Let's take them one by one. Forward contracts. Forward contract. Now, forward contracts simply is an agreement where exchange rate is agreed on today for a transaction that will occur in the future period. Okay, it's an agreement. It's a contract, as the name implies. It's a contract. It's an agreement entered into between two parties, the currency dealer and the company, where exchange rate is agreed today for a transaction that will take place in the future period. That is what we call for. Okay, sorry about the break. So let's write down the definition. Forward contract, forward contract is an agreement between two parties where exchange rate is agreed or set today for a transaction that will let me put it as for a future transaction for short for a future transaction. That is a sorry, hope you can see my handwriting very well. Okay, so that's for contract. So let's assume I have an obligation for $10,000, and that $10,000 my supplier has given me 3 months credit period to make this payment. So I have 3 months credit period, 3 months to make this payment. Now, what's the problem here? Let's say the current exchange rate, we call it spot rates. I think we have explained that earlier in our previous video. Spot rate. Let's say the spot rate as of today is 1,600 as of today. Now, my fear is that in 3 months' time, if the naira depreciates, I will be needing more than 1,600 to get $1 if naira depreciates. Because if naira depreciates, I'll be needing more naira to get $1. So I will spend more naira in order to settle that liability in 3 months' time. Because of this, I can enter into forward contract where the currency dealer will give me a forward rate, Let's say the forward rate is 1,650. This is the forward rates he has given me. So the moment we agree these forward rates, whatever happens to interest rate in the exchange rate in the future, I am going to buy dollar at 1,650 in 3 months' time, regardless of whether Naira has appreciated or depreciated. That's what we call a forward contract. Okay, that's our forward contract. Now, let's assume Naira has gone to 1,750 Naira in 3 months' time. So I have hedged. I've hedged my exposure. I will go and buy dollar at 1,000. But what is the shortcoming? The shortcoming is, what about if Naira appreciated to 1,500? I'm still logged into this exchange rate. That's one of the disadvantages of forward contracts. However, like we earlier mentioned in our previous video, that the objective of hedging is not for the company to make profit, but to hedge exposure, to have certainty about its cash flow projection. We want to be certain that we have accurate, at least reasonable estimate of our cash flow. We don't want to have cash flow that is fluctuating every time. Okay, that's the essence of hedging. All right. So we are not hedging to make a gain. We are not hedging to make a gain. But you can also make a gain, like I said. You can also, it's not that we are not allowed to make a gain. We are allowed to make a gain. But the primary aim of hedging is not to make a gain. That's what we are saying here. Okay. Now, let's look at what are the advantages of forward contract. What are the advantages of forward contract? Advantages. Advantages of forward contract. One, it does not involve upfront payments. It does not involve upfront payments. What does that mean? When you enter into forward contract, you are not paying money, you are not paying any money ahead. Okay, you are not paying the dealer ahead of the transaction date. You have to wait until the transaction date before you make a payment. There is no upfront payment involved when you are using a forward contract. Number two is that it can be tailored to users' specific exposure / requirement. So, forward contract is not standardized. I'm going to explain what standardization it means when we come to future. When we see standardization, we are saying contract can be buy a multiple of unit of a currency. For instance, if I want to hedge $50,000, I can buy contract that will enable me to hedge 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. That's what in multiple. I can hedge a multiple of 10,000. If I buy one contract, it hedges $10,000. If I buy another one contract, it hedges another $10,000. That is standardization. But for forward contract is not a standardized contract. Okay, it's not standardized. You can use it to hedge any amount of exposure. It is not standardized. That's another advantage of it. Number three is that it is an over-the-counter transaction, meaning that there is no middleman between you and the foreign currency dealer. It's not something that someone arranges between you and the other party, no middleman. So it is an over-the-counter. It's just like your loan. You want to take loan from the bank, what happens? You go to the bank, you arrange the loan directly with the bank. There is no middleman between you and the bank. That is what we call an over-the-counter transaction. Okay? That's what we call an over-the-counter transaction. Okay. Now, what are the disadvantages? Disadvantages. Disadvantages. Disadvantages of forward contract. Disadvantages of forward contracts. Number one is that counterparty risk. Counterparty risk is very high. So what's a counterparty risk? Counterparty risk is the risk that the other party will not honor the agreement, will default on the agreement. That is counterparty risk. So because there is no middleman, it is just between you and the currency dealer, then either of the two parties can default. The company can default to honor the agreement by not buying from the bank, for instance, if exchange rate move in its favor. And the bank can also decide, or the foreign currency dealer can also decide not to honor the agreement if exchange rate has also moved in its own favor as well. Okay, that is counterparty risk. Okay, that is counterparty risk. Number two is that the company cannot take advantage of a favorable movement of exchange rates. So once you agree on forward contract, you cannot take advantage of a favorable movement in exchange rate. If currency has moved in your favor, there is no way you can take advantage of such because you have locked yourself um, to a particular exchange. You are committed to an exchange rate and you have to honor that agreement. Okay, it's a contract. So if you don't honor it, that's a breach of contract. Okay, even though there's counterparty risk, it's a breach of contract. It's not legal. It's an illegal act. So once you enter into forward rate agreement, you are already committed to buying at that agreed rate, which is the forward rate. You can no longer take advantage if exchange rate moves in your favor. Okay. Number 3, it is not marked. Sorry. Write it very well. Number 3, it is not marked to market on a daily basis. Now, when you say mark to market is a daily settlement of gain and loss on a transaction. Okay, mark to market. So, for instance, if exchange rate is 1,600, when I enter into the transaction, and exchange rate has moved against me 1,650. I have already lost 15 naira, on that particular day. I've lost 15 naira. So mark to market simply means that I have to settle this 15 naira to the other party. Okay, I will pay this 15 naira to the other party. Now, another day, if exchange rate move from 1,650 to 1,550, this other party will have to pay me what? We have to pay me 100, yes, 100 naira. You have to pay me 100 naira. So that's what we call mark to market, daily settlement of gain and losses on that transaction. Okay, so for forward contract is not marked to market. We are going to explain the concept of mark to market when we treat futures contract. However, you are not expected to know how to do mark to market settlement for the purpose of this exam. You just have to know that it exists by know the theoretical explanation of mark to market, but don't go and look at how the mark to market settlement is done. No, it is not required for the purpose of this exam. Okay, now let's now go and solve a question on this. Let's go and solve a question on this. Let's go and solve a question on forward contracts. Let's go back to our material. Let's go back to our material. Okay. Question number 1. Owuya Osese. Owuya Osese. Owuya Osese PSC, a Nigerian company, is due to receive 500,000 waka, the currency of an African country, in 6 months' time for goods supplied. The company decided to hedge its exposure by using forward market. The short-term interest rate in Nigeria is 15% per annum, and the equivalent rate in the African country is 18%. The spot exchange rate is 2.5 waka to the naira. You are required to calculate how much Owuya Osese PSA actually gained or lost as a result of the hedging transaction. If at the end of 6 months, the naira in relation to waka has gained 4%, has lost 2%, and what has remained stable. So you may assume that forward rate rather, or forward rate of exchange simply reflects the interest rate differential in the two countries. That is purchase interest rate parity theory, which we have discussed in our previous video. Okay, so let's solve this. Owiya Oshesi. That is question 1, right? Yeah, should be question 1. Question 1, page what? Page what? Page, okay, page 119, okay. Page 119. Page 119. This one, okay, yeah. So I'm going up. Page 119. Okay, so let's go and solve this. This is coming on to air using forward contract. So let's see that contract now. The first question you ask yourself is, what is going to be the agreed forward rate? You must know what forward rates are they going to agree in this transaction. Okay, you have to calculate that. You can see that it's not apparently given here, but you have information to be able to calculate it. In some other question, it might be given directly that this is the forward rate, rate. In some other question, it may not be given like this one. It's not given. You need to go and calculate what the forward rate will be in 6 months' time, and that is the reason why, if you see, we talk about what do you call it? Sorry about this. We talk about interest rate parity theory. That interest rate parity theory describe the relationship between forward rate considering the interest rate differential between the two countries. So if I know the interest rate of the two countries are involved, I can use interest rate parity theory to calculate a forward rate for the exchange rate between the two countries. Okay, now we have what percentage? Nigeria interest rate is 15%. The interest rate in the Central Africa country is 18%. Now, if this is the case, then look at it. Interest rate is quoted per annum. Please take note. Interest rate is quoted per annum. So, if interest rate is quoted per annum, our transaction is only for 6 months. It means I need to take half of this 80%, also half of 15%, because I want to predict for just 6 months, not 1 year. Okay, I'm predicting for 6 months, not 1 year. I have to take half of the 18%, half of the 15%. And look at it. What's our spot rate? Our spot rate is 2.5 Waka to the Naira. So Waka is the price currency here. Waka is the price currency, while Naira is the base currency. So let's go ahead and calculate that. That's page 119. Page 119. So agreed forward rates. Agreed forward rate. So that is spot rate as time T is equal to SO multiplied by 1 plus information of country, interest rate of country A plus 1 plus interest rate of country B. Okay, interest rate of country B. That's what that's a interest rate parity formula. So Nigeria inflation rate, Nigeria interest rate, sorry, Nigeria interest rate this time around for what? For 6 months. For 6 months will be equal to 1/2 times 15%. And that's what? That's a 7.5%. Then the what? Central Africa country interest rate. Interest rate also for 6 months is equal to 1/2 times 18%. And that's what? That's a 9, that's 9%. That's 9%. So ST is equal to, now, the spot rate is 2.5 waka to dollar. So put it there, 2.5 waka to dollar. Which country spends waka? The Central Africa country spends waka. So the interest rate of the Central Africa country should be up. Okay, it should be up. So we're going to have this into brackets 1 plus 1 plus 0.09 divided by 1 plus 0.075. That is Nigerian interest rate. Okay, so you can see, like we explained in our previous video, that when we are predicting the exchange rate for the future, look at the price currency. In this case, our price currency is the waka. So since waka is a price currency, the inflation rate of the country that spends waka is what will be a denominator. And which country? That is Central African country. That's why we have 0.09 up there. So our ST, that's our spot rate at time T, will be 2.5 multiplied by 1.09 over 1.075. 1.075. So ST, you can also call it forward rate, no problem. The same. We have a so we have 1.09 divided by 0.09 divided by 1.075. You multiply this by 2.5. So we have 2.5349. 2.5349. So exchange rate is quoted 4 decimal places. So maintain 4 decimal places for your rates. Okay? Maintain 4 decimal places for your rates. Okay. So what this means is that this is the rate the dealer will agree with the company for the transaction that will be taking place in what? In 6 months' time. So this is what we call forward rates. That is the forward rate. We have predicted the forward rate. Now let's now go back and start answering that that question. Please let's confirm this. Hope there's no mistake there. Let me confirm it again. Let me look at the spot rate. 2 point, okay, that's correct. 2.5. So 1.09 divided by 1.075 multiply by 2.5. 2.5349. 2.5349. Oh, 49. Okay. So be 2.5349. 2.5349. Okay, that's correct. 2.5349. Okay. Okay, so now the first requirement is if Naira what? If if Naira gained 4%, if in 6 months time, you know the transaction is in 6 months time. If in that 6 months, the Naira has gained 4% against Waka, that's sum of figure one. If Naira gains 4% against Waka in 6 months, in 6 months time. Now, if that is the case, you know the spot rate, which is Waka to Naira, is 2.5. Abi? Now, if the Naira should gain 4%, it means the Waka should have depreciated. Okay? We should need more Waka to get $1. That is when that will have said to our what? Appreciated. Gain, mean appreciate. Okay, so it therefore means that we're going to have um, spot rate at time t. I think I should not confuse this one with spot rate. Let me use forward rate so that it's not confusing. Let me just use forward rate. Don't want to confuse us here. Let me just use F to denote forward rate and the other one spot rate. Okay, so that we are on the same page. So let me put forward rate at that time. Okay, forward rate at that time. Okay, so that's fine. So let's use forward rate to know that, and let's use a spot rate, which is the actual exchange rate on that particular date. The actual exchange rate. The forward rate is what we predicted. Is what we predicted to happen in 6 months. But for the forward, sorry, for the spot rate will not be the actual on that particular date. So we now have 2.5 multiplied by 1.04. Why? Because the Naira is appreciating. If the Naira is appreciating, the unit of Waka to get 1 Naira must have gone up. Okay? Must have gone up. So let us multiply this. We have 2.5 times 1.04, and that is 2.6. 2.60. We have 2.60. 2.60 Waka. Now, in 6 months now, let me see if the company has actually gained. You know, we have locked in this price. This is the price we agree. So we are committed. We must buy the dollar at this rate because it's a forward contract. It's a binding contract. Okay, it's a binding contract. So it therefore means that um, the transaction at forward rate FR will not be, what's our exposure? How much are we receiving? We are meant to receive 500,000. So that will be 500,000. Now, it's Waka. We have to divide. We have to divide. The same currency divide, different currency um, multiply. So the same currency, we are going to have 2.6. 2.6. So in Naira, that to give us 500,000. 500,000 divided by 2.6. 192,307.192,307 192,307.69. Now, this what the company will receive. I mean, it's a receipt due to receive. Yeah. This is the actual amount the company will receive as a sort of the forward contract. Okay, that's the actual amount it's going to receive. Now, Adibini did not hedge. Adibini did not hedge. Am I correct? That's an error. Sorry. The rate I used there is not correct. I'm doing forward, so it should also be 2.5349. 2 point, that's the forward rate. 2 point, that's the forward rate. So this also will not be correct. Let me change it. So will not be correct. Okay. So 500,000, let's put that. 500,000 divided by 2.5349. 5349, that is 197. 197, 246, 246, 144. So that's the amount, the actual amount of Naira this company will receive under the forward contract. But DB, the company did not hedge. It will have received at 2.6. So let's see, without hedge, without hedge, DB would not hedge, it will have been 500,000 over 2.60 over 2.60. 500,000 divided by 2.6. 192,307. Okay, we calculated that earlier. 192, 192,307, 192,307.69. So, as the company gained, yes, the company has gained how much? Because this is what he actually received, and this is what he would have received if the company had not hedged. So the gain, they gain on forward contract. Gain on forward contract now being 197, 197, 246, 197, 246.44 minus 192,307.69. So the gain is 4,093.75. 4,098.75. That's the gain on the forward contract. That is if Naira what? Gains 4%. If Naira gains 4%. So second requirement is what? If it lost what? If Naira lost 2%. If Naira lost 2%. If Naira lost 2% against Waka. Against Waka. So if Naira lost 2%, It means we need less worker to get one naira. We need less, the price currency is worker. So we'll be needing less worker to get 1 naira if naira has actually lost 2%. So in that case, our spot rate will be 2.5 worker multiplied by 0.98 multiplied by 0.98. Let me write it very well. 5 worker multiplied by 0.98. We have to reduce that spot rate by 2%. So 0.98 times 2.5. That's 2.45. So we have 2.45 worker. So as previously computed, the transaction at forward rate, we computed that earlier. Transaction at forward rate what did you compute earlier? We computed 197246. 197,246.46, right? 0.44. 0.44. That's the amount we actually received. So without the edge, if we did not edge, without edge, we will have received 500,000. We'll have received 500,000 over what? Over 2.45. Over 2.45. Over 2.45. 500,000 divided by 2.45. 204. Am I correct? 204,081. 204,081.62. This is what we will have received. This is what we will have received. Okay? Therefore, there's what? There's a loss. There's a loss. Loss of how much? We have a loss on forward contract. Loss on forward contract is 197,246.44 minus 204,081.62. And that's what? 6,835.18. 6,835.18 is a loss. Why? Because we will have converted at a higher value. We have received more naira than we have under the forward contract. Now, number 3 is if naira remained stable. meaning that if the exchange rate remain at 2.5, if that is the case, our transaction at forward rate remains the same, 197,246.44 without edge. Without edge, it will be 500,000 divided by 2.5. 500,000 divided by 2.5. That's 200,000. 200,000. So is there again a loss? There's a loss. Loss of how much? Minus 197,246.44. 6.44. 2753.56. 2753.56. That's a loss on forward contract. So these are the three scenarios. These are the three scenarios given by the examiner in this question. Okay, let's now go to the next hedging techniques. Let's move on to the next hedging technique. Money market hedge. Money market hedge. Now, money market hedge is hedging technique that is used to convert a foreign obligation to a local obligation or a foreign receipt to a local receipt before the transaction date. Okay? You are converting your obligation, your future obligation, you are converting it, your future foreign obligation, you are converting it to local obligation, and or your foreign receipt, you are converting it to domestic receipt, even before the transaction date. That is money market hedge. How does money market hedge work? Let's look at it. How does it work? Now, money market hedge. Now, let me take it with respect to obligation and with respect to what? Receipt. Let's see foreign receipt. Foreign receipt. What's the procedure? Now, I have a receipt in the country. Sorry, yes, receipt. I have a receipt in the country. If I have a foreign receipt, it means I have an asset. Receipt is an asset, right? Receipt is an asset. It means I have someone who is bound to give me that money in the future period. So I have an asset in that country. So since I have an asset in that country, if I want to hedge using money market, I will do the opposite. Create the opposite, create the opposite, create the opposite of your exposure. Create the opposite of your exposure. What's my exposure? The exposure is that I have a receipt there, foreign receipt, that when I collect it in that period, I will have to convert it to Naira. So that's my exposure. So I have to create the opposite of that exposure. What's the opposite? That is, I what? Because it's a receipt, I will create a liability. Create a liability. Mhm. Liability. Okay, let me call it payment. This receipt, I mean. So payment, I will create a payment. Payment is a liability. Payment is a liability, right? I have a receipt there. I've created a liability. Now, how do I create that liability? I will create the liability by borrowing. Create the liability by borrowing. The foreign currency. That's your first step. Create a liability. Because I have an asset there, I have to create a liability. That's the opposite of an asset. Create a liability. And to create a liability, I have to borrow in that country. Okay, I have to borrow in that country. Now, when I borrow, what will I do? How much do I need to borrow? You know that whenever you borrow, let's say, let me explain this. Let's say my receipt, hmm, my receipt is 5,000. I now to create a liability. If I go and borrow, if I create a liability and I go and borrow 5,000, that's a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that this liability will be accruing interest. There's going to be accrued interest on it over the time of the loan, right? So if I borrow 5,000 and the 5,000 has grown to 5,500, for instance, when I collect this 5,000, can it settle this amount? The answer is no. So it means my assets there cannot settle my liability. So that's a problem. That's a problem. Therefore, for you to create this liability, the amount you are going to borrow must be less than your exposure. Hmm? The amount you are going to borrow must be less than your exposure. So how do we calculate the amount you have to borrow? The amount to borrow, amount to borrow, amount to borrow, borrow is calculated as the present value, as the present value of the foreign foreign receipt discounted using the borrowing rate. So mathematically, the amount you need to borrow, amount to borrow should be equal to your exposure. It should be equal to your exposure over 1 plus R. So where R is the discount rate. Where R is the discount rate. Which one? The borrowing rate. Borrowing rate. In this case, borrowing rate. So that is how you get the amount you need to borrow. Now, having gotten the amount you need to borrow, then go to step 2. Go to step 2. Step 2. This amount you have borrowed, you know you borrowed it in the foreign country. So you need to convert it. Convert it. Convert the amount borrowed into your local currency. Local currency at the spot exchange rate. At the spot exchange rate. So it simply means that you borrow that dollar, you bring it to Nigeria. That's what it means by conversion. You convert it into Naira. So after conversion to Naira, you go to step number 3. You have brought it to Nigeria. You are not spending it. You now go and deposit it. What did he do? You started by borrowing. You enter into the money market by borrowing. So when you are closing out, you need to do the opposite. The opposite of borrow is what? Is lend, which is what? Deposit. You lend the bank, you deposit it in order to earn interest. So deposit the naira amount at the domestic lending rate, not borrowing. You are not borrowing, you are lending rate. Now, when that time comes, your investment in Nigeria is accumulating interest. Your investment in the United States, or whatever country you are dealing with, is also accumulating interest. But that one in the United States, because you have discounted it using the borrowing rate, it will grow to become exactly your exposure. If the exposure is $5,000, you have discounted it. You borrowed less than 5,000. So the amount you have borrowed will be accruing here as a borrowing rate until you get to $5,000. Such that if the exposure is in 3 months, for instance, you go to the United States in 3 months, collect your money from the pay that is owing you, use it to pay your foreign obligation, and you close out of that transaction. That's what we call money market hedge. Now you just come to your Nigeria, you collect your what? Deposit. What have you done? You have converted a foreign receipt that is exposed to foreign exchange fluctuation. You have converted it to Naira even before the transaction date. That is what we call money market hedge. Okay, that is a money market hedge. All right. Uh, let's see. Any separate question on money market hedge, or is it together? If it is together, then we take the next set techniques before we. use an over the counter currency option. Okay, this is for contract exchange rate, not to hedge, blah blah. Okay, so let's take other techniques together because the questions are actually encompassing. Questions here are encompassing. So we just take some questions randomly. The questions randomly using, you can see that all these questions we are solving here are icon questions. So we solve the icon question and we see how questions are being asked there. Now we are done with this. We are done. Does not mean that we are not going to solve question on it. We are going to solve question on it, but only that we don't have a single question that is meant for only what do you call it? Only money market edge. So let's take other techniques. There is a currency futures contract. Currency futures contract. Now, for currency futures contracts, how does it work? Let's go explain this. Now, currency futures contract is similar to forward contract in the sense that it is an arrangement between two parties to sell or buy a quantity of foreign currency in the future period. Okay. However, currency future is different from forward contract in the sense that, number one, currency futures contract. Currency futures contract. So this is an arrangement. Let me call it agreement instead of arrangement. This is an agreement between two parties to buy or sell a quantity of a foreign currency at a pre-specified fee at the pre-specified rate in the future. Okay, now you can see that the definition is similar to forward contract, but it's substantially different. Let's look at the difference. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened to me. I lock you. Okay, take it back now. Okay, so differences. Let's look at the differences. Differences between forward contracts and futures contracts. One, futures contracts futures contracts futures contracts are traded while forward contract is over the counter. Is over the counter. It's over the counter. Number two, futures contracts is standardized. Standardized. Why? Forward contract is not. Number three, futures contract is marked to market on a daily basis. Why forward contract is not. Number four, futures contract involves upfront payments in the form of margin requirements. While forward contract is not. Why forward contract is not. Okay, so I said future contract award are traded, while forward contract is over the counter. We explained that earlier when we did the forward contract. We said the forward contract is over the counter. It's arrangement between two parties directly. No middleman is involved. For futures contract is standardized. I think I was okay. I need to include that as standardization. Did I include it? We'll include that later. So futures contract is traded just like your shares. It's a derivative. It's a derivative. So it's a traded contract in the sense that when you want to enter into futures contract, you are actually buying the futures from the market. We are buying the future from the futures market. Okay, we are buying it from the futures market. But for forward contract, it's just arrangement between two parties. No no market is involved. We are not buying from the market. Then futures contract is what standard. Okay, I put it there. Is standardized, while forward contract is not. Like I explained earlier, when we say standardization, it means you can buy contract that hedges multiple of a currency, multiple of a currency. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, multiple. But for forward contract, it can be used, it can be tailored to what user specific requirement. So number three, futures contract is marked to market. That is, gain and losses are settled on a daily basis. At the close of every trading day, at the close of every trading day, the contract must reset. Okay, so we have to settle the party that is gaining, we have to settle the party that is losing. When we say settlement, it's not that we are not paying them. Let me explain this so that it's clear. I have party A, I have party B. Should I use up or let me just use down? I don't distort this one. I have party A, I have party B, and they enter into futures contract. This man, we have to open an account. This man, we also have to open an account. This account is called margin account. Margin account. So this margin is divided into two. We have what we call the initial margin. Then we have the maintenance margin. We have the maintenance margin. So when they enter into this account, they will open accounting with the exchange. They open account with the exchange. So the exchange is the middleman between these two parties. The exchange is the middleman. Now, in this margin account, we tell that okay, initial margin means okay, Mr. A, you need to put maybe $200 into this account. Mr. B, you also need to put $200 into this account. That's the upfront payment. You can see that I mentioned it here. It involves what? Upfront payment. You are not paying to that party. You are paying it to that your margin account. Okay? The money goes into your margin account so that now let's assume that in the first trading day, this transaction to Mr. A resulted into a loss of $5 in total. The total contract, we have $5 loss. Now, when the trade closes on that day, what the agent will do is that the agent will remove $5 from here, minus 5. So that we have what? We have $195 left, Abby. We have $195 left. Why? Because that party has lost $5 for that particular day. So in his margin account, he has $195 left. This one will gain the same amount of what? Of $5. So this one we have in his account, $205. This amount is not withdrawable. It's not that you can withdraw. You cannot withdraw it until the transaction is complete, until the futures contract expires. The agent will just be monitoring these two accounts. Gain will be removed from the party that gains. Will be added to the person that gains. Loss will be deducted from the person that actually lost. So if in the second day, the second party, Mr. B, has lost maybe $15, so I will say okay, minus 15. So will be deducted from his account, so that the account will be balance will be what? 190. Am I correct? 190, yes. So this man has gained how much? He has gained $5, $15. So his account balance becomes what? His account balance becomes um 210. You can see this is how the settlement will continue on a daily basis until the transaction expires, until the future contract expires. That is what we call uh, margin, okay? Mark to market. So the money you put in your account at the beginning is the margin. Now, that is initial margin. The initial amount you deposit there is the initial margin. Now, we now have what we call the maintenance margin. We have the maintenance margin. The maintenance margin simply means the balance, uh, the balance that your margin account will reduce to for you to to get a margin call. Margin what? Margin call. Margin call. Now, let's say the maintenance margin we have set here is $150. Maintenance margin. Okay, let me take it to $100. Let's say the maintenance margin is $100. What this means is that as the daily settlement, mark to market, as the daily settlement is what is being carried out, is being carried out. Any party whose account balance has dropped to $100 as a sort of what accumulated losses, then the party will receive what we call a margin call from the exchange. It will receive a margin call. The margin call is that, okay, margin call means, okay, Mr. B, your margin account has dropped to $100. You need to go and you need to come and deposit more fund into the margin account. And the fund you are going to deposit to the margin account must be such that it will bring the margin balance to the initial margin. So if your account balance has reduced to $100, which is the uh, uh, minimum what? The minimum margin you need to have in your account. If it has gotten back to that, then you receive a margin call. That's you'll be required to come and make what? A maintenance margin. That maintenance margin will be that you are going to deposit additional what? Additional $100 to your account to bring the account back to what? To the initial margin. Hmm? To bring the account balance to initial margin. That's what we call um, the mark to market, the daily settlement. So futures contract involved, that's the next one. I'm away from this mark to market. Futures contract involve upfront payment in the form of margin requirement, while forward contract is not. I've explained that. So there's nothing like upfront payment for forward contract. And that is the reason why what do you call it? Counterparty risk is what is very, very high. Okay, let me save this slide. Another one. This thing. So let's see, sorry, in my folder. This one. Oh, Should be here now. Okay, can save it from there. And just open the new slide straight. I guess it should be already, yeah, it's already here, fine. Okay, all right. Now, let's now go to um, the detailed explanation of currency futures contracts. We'll look at the difference between futures contract and the forward contracts. So let's go to now is forget futures currency futures contract continues. We have oh what did I do? What did I do? That's no sense. Okay, so currency futures contract continues. Currency futures contracts is what? Continued. Now, there are two markets that you are going to be dealing in when you are hedging using futures contracts. Two markets. One, you are dealing with the spot market. Spot market. The spot market is where the buying and selling of the foreign currency takes place. That is spot market. Two, futures market. Futures market, where the buying and selling of futures contracts takes place. These are the two markets you are dealing with when you are hedging using futures contracts. Okay, let's go to our materials that I'm not missing anything from you for here. Now, there is, we have, since you are dealing with spot market, there's what is called the spot rate, which all of us now know by now. We have spot rate, Abby. That's for the spot market. We have the futures price. Which for the very well. We have the spot rate. That's for the spot market. We have the futures price. Risk for the futures market. For the futures market. Now, there is a relationship, inverse relationship between the spot market, that is the spot rate, and the futures price. You need to understand this, okay, for you to be able to do hedging using futures properly. There is an inverse relationship between the spot rate and the futures price. And what's that? One, let me put it so that that's what I'm doing. Relationship between futures price and spot rate, spot exchange rate. So one, if exchange rate is increasing, if exchange rate is increasing, if exchange rate is increasing, the futures price will be reducing. So, mean that as exchange rate keep escalating in the market, the future price is what? Is dropping. The futures price is dropping. Number two, if exchange rate is reducing, the futures price will be increasing. The futures price will be increasing if exchange rate is what? Is reducing. Now, how do we now hedge using currency futures contract? Before that, let me also go and explain to you. I want to be sure that I'm not missing any important point that you need to know. Okay? There are four contracts. There are four contracts in a year. Contracts. There are four futures contracts. Four futures contracts in a year. And what are they? We have one, the March contract, the June contract, the September contract, and what? The December contract. The December contract. Now, what this means is that contract expires. Contract expires every 3 months. Contract expires every 3 months. Contract expires every 3 months. Please note. Contract expires every 3 months. Every 3 months. So it depends on your exposure. The rule is this. The rule is this. The rule is for you to buy the contracts. Rule. Buy the contracts. Buy the contract that expires immediately after your after your transaction date. After your transaction date. For instance, if I have a payment, I have $5,000 payment I want to make, and I want to hedge it using futures contract, and the payment date is July. Now, the appropriate future for me to buy is what? Is the September contract. I cannot use June contract to hedge. Why? Because the June contract comes before my transaction date. I cannot use uh, December contract because that is too far away from my transaction date. I need to use a contract that is expiring immediately after my transaction date. I believe that is clear. Okay, so that's the rule. Now let's now go and see the detailed procedure for hedging using futures contract. Let's go back to our notes. Setting up the futures contract. Now, first of all, set up the hedge by addressing three key questions. Do we initially buy or sell futures? Do I need to enter into this market? Do I need to enter into the futures market by buying futures contract or by by selling futures contract? Do I need to buy or sell futures, in short? Then, when I decide that, how many contracts do I need to buy? How many contracts should I buy? It's another important question you need to ask yourself. Number two is, which expiry date should I choose? Which expiry date should I choose? These are the three key questions your futures hedging should address. Number one is what? Do I need to buy or sell futures? Number two is how many futures contract to buy or sell? Number three is what expiry should I choose? What expiry date should I choose? Number two, now you go to the exchange, you pay the initial margin. Like I told you, you don't need to bother about this anyway. Forget about that. Forget about that. Pay the initial margin. Should not be your issue. ICANN will not require you to do margin requirement like I told you. No, no margin requirement in this exam. Okay. Now let's go and see. Procedures. Procedures for hedging using futures contracts. Using futures contracts. Number one, you need to know whether you are buying or selling futures contract, like I said earlier. I want to give you the detailed procedure you need to follow. So, determine whether to buy or what? Or sell futures. Or sell futures. Okay, what's the rule? You know, under the relationship between futures contract and spot rate, we said there is what? Inverse relationship. That if, let me go up there so that you see what we did earlier. If exchange rate is increasing, what happens to the futures price? The futures price drops. So now, I have an obligation. And the obligation is for $10,000 that I need to pay to a US supplier in 3 months' time, for instance. And currently, the spot rate, naira to dollar, let's assume is 1,500 naira as of today. Okay? Now, what is my fear? My fear is that this exchange rate will increase in the future, isn't it? My fear is that this exchange rate will increase in the future. That's the reason why I want to hedge, because I have obligation. If exchange rate increases, I will need more naira to buy the $10,000. So I will spend more to buy the $10,000. That's my fear. So if I want to hedge using futures, come back to this relationship. If exchange rate is increasing, the futures price what will be reducing. So it therefore means that if this is my fear, right now I expect that in the future exchange rate will increase. I mean, that's my expectation. My expectation is that in the future exchange rate will increase. So if exchange rate increases in the future, what happens to the futures price? The futures price will have dropped. So what I'm going to do right now is to sell the futures, because it means the futures price is high now. I will sell it. So in the futures, when it drops, what will I do? I will buy it back cheaply. Meanwhile, exchange rate will have moved against me, isn't it? Exchange rate will have moved against me. If exchange rate move against me in the spot market, I will be making a loss. You know, I told you are dealing with two markets, spot market and what? And the futures market. In the spot market, I'll be making a loss because interest exchange rate has actually moved against me. But in the futures market, futures price has what? Has dropped. I'm buying it cheaply. What am I doing there? I'm gaining from the futures market. So my gain from the futures market, it will be used to offset my loss in the spot market. That is exactly how futures contract works. So you are dealing with two markets, spot market, futures market. If you are making a loss in one of the markets, the second market must be giving you a profit. If you are making a profit in the other market, the second market must be giving you a loss. You cannot get loss from these two markets at the same time, because we have inverse relationship between the rate in the two markets. Likewise, you cannot get profit from the two markets at the same time. And that is the reason why futures contract is a good hedging technique. Okay? What happened? Okay. Okay. Let me wipe this off. All right, so let's go back. Uh, So determine whether to buy or sell futures, right? So a company having a foreign liability, a foreign liability should enter into the futures market. Okay, let me put it in better perspective. A company having a foreign liability will have the fear, that exchange rates will move against it, before the transaction date. Therefore, the company should enter into the futures market, by selling futures now, and buying it back, in the future. Okay. What about a company that is having a receipt? We do the opposite. A company having a foreign receipt, will fear that exchange rates will move against it if the local currency appreciates. If the local currency appreciates, therefore, it should enter into the futures market by buying futures and selling it selling it in the future. That's one. That's one. So deciding whether you are buying or selling. I have a foreign obligation. My fear is that exchange rate will, like Nigerian naira will depreciate. So exchange rate will move against me. What should I do? I will enter by selling the futures contract, and I will close out by what? By buying it back when it becomes cheaper. If I'm having a foreign receipt, my fear is that Nigerian naira will appreciate. If it does, I will receive less naira than it will have been if it has depreciated. Therefore, I will enter the market by buying futures now, so that I will sell it when it becomes expensive, when the futures, when the exchange rate actually appreciates. So that's number one. Number two is, which contract should you buy or sell? Which contract should the company buy or sell? So the rule is that the company should buy or sell contracts that expires, immediately after the transaction date. After the transaction date. Okay. Number three, how many contracts? Don't forget, we say is what? This market is standardized. Okay, it's a standardized contract. So you need to decide, how many contracts do I need to buy to hedge my exposure? How many contracts to buy? How many contracts to buy or sell? How many contracts to buy or what? Or sell? So how do I get that? Number of contracts is equal to my exposure over contract size of the contract, multiple of the currency. Exposure over contract size. Exposure over contract size. Now, note, if the exposure and the contract size, if the exposure and the contract size are in different currencies, in different currencies, the exposure should be converted to the contract currency at the opening futures price. At the opening futures price. Please take note of that. You need to be sure that your exposure and your contract currency are in the same currency. Your contract size, your exposure and the contract size, ensure that they are in the same currency. If they are not in the same currency, your exposure must be converted to the contract currency for you to hedge, and the conversion rate should be the opening futures price. So when you are done with this, you know your number of contracts, you go to step number 4. Now, step number 4, if closing futures price, if closing futures price, if closing futures price, if closing futures price is not given, if closing futures price is not given, this must be computed, this must be computed using the concept of basis, using the concept of basis. I will end this video shortly. It's becoming too long. I will end it shortly, then we'll do another video later. Okay, then let me finish this concept, then I end the video so that it's not unnecessarily long. I don't like long video. Okay, so you know we said that you enter by buying or selling contracts or futures contract, and you close by what? Also buying or selling futures contract. So it means the price at which you are entering the market is the opening futures price. So when you are closing out, you need to what? You need to have a closing futures price. That closing futures price, the examiner may give you the closing futures price. The examiner may give you the closing futures price, or you may be asked to calculate the closing futures price using the concept of basis. I'm not going to explain concept of basis in this video because it's going to be a bit long. So I will explain it in the next video. Okay. Now, number 5, you now calculate. You calculate the profit. Calculate the profit or loss on the futures contract. On the futures contracts. Then number 6, you can now calculate what? The outcome of the hedge. Outcome of the hedge. Outcome of the hedge. Calculate outcome of the hedge. Sometimes the examiner may want you to calculate hedge efficiency, but that is not a requirement that is constant for the purpose of the exam. If the examiner wants you to calculate hedge efficiency, it will be stated in the question. Okay, so calculate hedge efficiency. Calculate hedge efficiency. Hedge efficiency simply means how efficient your hedge is at resolving your exposure risk. Okay. All right. In the next video, I'm going to explain how to calculate the closing futures price using the concept of basis. And I'm also going to explain how to calculate what we call the lock-in rate, the lock-in exchange rate for the purpose of using currency futures contracts. So in the meantime, we stop here for now, and we meet in the next video. Thanks for your time.